It started as a quiet night above Earth. The sky was clear, the satellites moved in calm rhythm, and space seemed silent. Then, out of that silence, came a sound, a single pulse of static. At first, no one noticed it. A deep space listening post in the middle of the Pacific Ocean picked up the signal. The operator, a woman named Lieutenant Mara Hayes, thought it was just cosmic noise. But the pattern didn't stop. It repeated again and again. A faint, trembling rhythm, like a heartbeat buried under layers of static. She leaned closer to her monitor. "That's not background radiation," she said softly. The pattern shifted, forming clusters, tiny pauses that spelled something recognizable. Morse code, not human, but structured, intelligent. Her heart began to pound. Within an hour, the strange signal was forwarded to the United Earth Communication Network. Experts from every continent joined in. Linguists, code breakers, artificial intelligence programs, all tried to decode the message pulsing in the dark. It came from somewhere beyond Jupiter's orbit, about 9 light hours away. Weak, fading, and desperate. By dawn, they had the translation. The message was simple. Only 5 words repeated endlessly in tonal bursts. "We seek shelter. Please respond." The world froze. For the first time in years, every news channel carried the same story. A transmission, not from a probe, not from a human ship, but from something else, something alien. At first, there was disbelief. People argued it was a hoax. Someone suggested it was a marketing trick by a tech company. But then the telescopes found them, behind Jupiter, drifting toward the inner solar system. A fleet of ships moved in broken formation. They were enormous, jagged, surrounded by clouds of debris. Fire still burned along their hulls. No signals of power, no weapon signatures, no signs of aggression. Just movement. Slow, painful movement. The voice came again, clearer now as they drew closer. It wasn't a machine this time. It was a voice, trembling, weary, and full of fear. "We are the Osari, the last of our kind. We seek sanctuary. They are following." The translation sent a wave of silence through mission control. Governments demanded information. Was it real? Could they be dangerous? Scientists and military officers argued in long, tense meetings while millions of people watched live streams of the dark alien fleet. They looked fragile. Shattered towers and half-melted metal held together by strange glowing threads. It was clear to anyone who saw them. These beings were running from something. And whatever they were running from had destroyed them. For 3 days, the debate continued. The United Earth Council, the arm that commanded space operations, met in orbit on the Solstice Station. Generals presented reports of risk. Scientists reminded them of the historic opportunity to make first peaceful contact with another intelligent species. In secret, soldiers prepared for worst-case scenarios. Defense platforms were put on alert. Fleets took position beyond Mars. Humanity had learned that every signal from the stars carried both promise and danger. During those tense days, the Osari ships kept transmitting small bursts of light, like glittering Morse code across the Black Sea of space. Some tried to decode the symbols. Others simply watched. The messages grew shorter, weaker. "Our sons are gone. They come. Please shelter." Finally, the motion was put to vote, a single question for all human leaders. Do we let them in? The vote passed barely. Humanity decided to offer them help. For massive carriers, escorted by 12 smaller ships, were sent to meet the Osari fleet near the asteroid belt. Each carried supplies, translators, medics, and engineers. Everyone aboard knew the risk. They could be flying straight into a trap. But no one turned back. What the crew saw when they arrived near the alien fleet was unforgettable. Dozens of broken ships spinning slowly, surfaces scorched and torn. The airlocks of some vessels opened to space, drifting bodies frozen inside. Commander Yusef Karim of the USS Horizon led the mission. He spoke calmly into his mic as his ship approached the nearest alien vessel. "Unknown contact," he said. "We are from Earth. We come in peace." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a voice filled the comms. Soft, weak, grateful. "Humans, thank you. We did not think anyone would answer. The first contact was made. The Osari were no longer just a signal. They were real. Their leader, a tall figure with translucent skin and dark, glowing eyes, appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted but relieved. "We were hunted," he said slowly, struggling to form a human word through the translator. "Our world was burned. We ran. We have no home now." The humans shared looks of quiet sorrow, even across the vastness of space. Pain was familiar. "Come," Commander Kareem said. "We'll bring you to safety." For the next 2 days, the joint convoy made a slow journey toward Mars orbit. Medics treated the dying. Engineers from Earth patched up their ships. The Osari watched humans move with a strange mix of curiosity and disbelief. These warm-blooded beings, shorter and louder than any they'd known, worked endlessly without rest. They didn't act superior, they acted determined. But even as kindness spread, unease grew. Something odd stirred in the long-range sensors. At first, it was dismissed as noise, a faint ripple in deep space behind the Osari's trail. But the readings grew stronger each hour. Patterns emerged. Movement. Another fleet. The coordinates aligned perfectly with where the Osari had come from. When the first officer reported the anomaly, Commander Kareem frowned. "Could be debris," he said at first, though his voice lacked conviction. Moments later, the Osari leader requested a secure channel. His face appeared again on the screen, pale and trembling. "They are coming," he whispered. "You must run." "What are they?" Kareem asked. There was silence. Then only 2 words came through. "The harvesters." Behind the human ships, the faint light of the distant stars flickered, as if something vast and dark was blocking them out. And in that moment, Earth realized the truth. The Osari hadn't escaped their enemies. They had led them straight to humanity's home. The Osari ships were guided into orbit around Mars, their broken hulls glowing faintly under sunlight. The human escorts moved carefully, drifting with protective grace, like guards leading wounded refugees through an invisible battlefield. For the first time in known history, aliens lived under humanity's protection. Every news channel on Earth replayed the same images. Translucent figures with tired eyes being carried from cracked ships, their skeletal hands gripping the arms of human medics. Mars base stations overflowed with life. Technicians worked 20 hours a day setting up oxygen pods and quarantine domes. The Osari soldiers, those few still able to stand, watched in awe as humans repaired what they once thought was beyond saving. Captain Liana Cole, chief engineer of Soulforge Station, stood among the builders constructing new housing domes on the red sands. She wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. She was a problem solver, and she treated the alien crisis like an engineering puzzle. "Steel first, questions later," she often said. To her, survival always started with structure. Near her, the Osari leader, who now went by the name Burrell, since humans found his real name impossible to pronounce, stood quietly. His pale skin shimmered faintly under Mars light. "Your people build fast," he said, his voice still rough from the translator. Liana smiled, wiping dust from her gloves. "We always have. That's what we do when things fall apart." Varel nodded. "On my world, only the ruling house is built, and only after long meetings. You build before you speak. Is this your way?" Liana chuckled softly. "If we waited for leadership meetings, we'd never survive anything." But even as friendship began to grow between 2 species, shadows lingered. The Osari's rescued ships were searched to the smallest compartment. Inside, humans found strange symbols burned into the walls, markings that glowed faintly even when lights were off. When questioned, the Osari said it was their form of prayer. But one human linguist noted something unsettling. The patterns didn't look like prayers. They looked like coordinates. Meanwhile, to the outer solar system, the long-range sensors continued to track the anomaly. What began as dots now formed structure clusters, moving like hunting packs. The data was classified, but rumors spread fast. People whispered that Earth was about to host not just guests, but a cosmic war. Commander Yusef Kareem, now stationed on Mars orbit, faced endless questions from the United Earth Council. How powerful were the harvesters? Could they reach Earth? Could humanity even fight them? Kareem studied the images sent from drone probes. He saw enormous ships, organic-looking, almost alive, swimming to the void like predators through the sea. "They're not ships," one analyst muttered. "There's something else." Something groaned. Kareem turned off his screen. He had seen enough. He contacted Admiral Rosa dos Santos, controller of the defense grid. "Ma'am, if those things continue this trajectory," he said flatly, "they'll reach our outer perimeter in less than 20 days. Rosa didn't blink. "Understood. Begin Stage 1 protocols. I want the fleet on standby." When the order reached Earth, factories thundered to life. Old weapon projects sealed under treaties were reopened. Massive skyhooks above Earth and Luna began lifting railgun shells and drone interceptors into orbit. Civilians went about their daily lives pretending everything was normal, but deep down everyone felt the tension. The sky seemed heavier, the nights quieter. Back on Mars, news reached the Osari. Panic spread through their sheltered domes. Many believed their past was coming to find them again. Some begged Varel to flee. Others wanted to hide underground, away from human eyes. Varel stood before them inside a temporary dome where thin walls vibrated under every step his people took. "The humans saved us," he said, raising his narrow hands. "We will not bring more death to them." An Osari warrior shouted from the crowd. "You said the harvesters cannot be stopped. They burned 5 systems." Varel looked down. His voice grew soft. "Maybe they never met humans." On Earth, public opinion divided overnight. Half the population wanted to stand with the refugees. The other half wanted them gone, sent back into deep space before their enemies arrived. News anchors debated morality while companies sold Defend Earth shirts and crisis music filled the airwaves. Then one shocking broadcast silenced everyone. A small harvester probe had been detected at the edge of Saturn's rings. Humanity's telescopes captured its arrival in real time, a black, angular shard drifting through debris. It didn't transmit anything, didn't respond to any calls, but one thing was clear. It was observing. Earth's defenses powered up across the board. On Titan base, soldiers stood beside launch pads loaded with antimatter torpedoes. The headlines called it the Silent Watcher. Scientists called it the First Harvester. The Osari reacted with pure terror. They screamed when the images were shown, some breaking down completely. Varel pressed a trembling hand against the display. "That is no probe," he said. "It is a scout. The harvesters always send one before the fleet. It will taste your system, your signals, your defenses." When asked what that meant, Varel looked straight into the camera and said, "It has already told them where you are." The world fell into silence. 3 days later, the mysterious probe self-destructed, turning into a silent cloud of black dust. No explosions, no heat, just gone. That same day, deep space sensors beyond Neptune went offline one by one. Some said it was technical failure. Others whispered the truth. Something large was moving between them. Admiral Rosa called an emergency council. "This isn't just about helping refugees anymore," she said. "This is about defending Earth against something it's never faced." She looked around the table at commanders, engineers, and scientists. "I don't care if they're gods or monsters. Build me a wall strong enough to hold the line." Liana Cole received that same transmission at her construction yard on Mars. Her teams had already started reinforcing supply stations, converting cargo towers into rail platforms. She stared at the message, then at the Osari children, sitting quietly outside the domes, watching Earth ships streak across the sky. "They came for shelter," she murmured to herself. "Let's make sure they find it here." The workers nodded and picked up their tools again. Sparks bloomed like tiny stars on the crimson Martian dawn. But deep beyond sight, far past the edges of comfort, sensors captured the first faint reflections of movement, shadows stretching across black space. A shape formed among them, colossal and dark, swallowing light. The harvesters had found them. The first human to see the enemy was a mining technician named Arjun Patel. He was stationed on Outpost 49, a lonely facility near Neptune, where the solar wind screamed like invisible storms. His job was simple, monitor the fuel converters, check the drone readings, and keep the signal beacons online. Most days, there was nothing to see but silence and dust. That changed at 2:17 Earth time. His radar screen flickered once, then twice. A shape emerged, massive, slow-moving, and cold. He blinked, thinking it was an asteroid. But asteroids didn't travel in formation. Asteroids didn't pulse with rhythmic energy, readings like a heartbeat. He leaned forward, his voice shaky. Outpost 49 to command. I think something's here. Before command could respond, his entire station trembled. The deep space array sensors overloaded. And then, far across the viewing window, the stars blinked out one by one, eaten by something vast, black, and moving. The feed cut off mid-transmission. Outpost 49 vanished. By dawn, Earth's monitoring fleet detected over 200 unknown signals entering the Neptune perimeter. The harvesters had arrived. Global emergency channels switched to red alerts. The United Earth Council ordered immediate evacuation for all non-military personnel beyond Mars. Civilian transports formed long burning trails leaving the outer colonies, while military fleets took position in a single crescent formation between Jupiter and Saturn. Commander Yusuf Karim hadn't slept in 40 hours. In the command room aboard the USS Horizon, red lights reflected off his face. He stared at the main tactical display, blinking dots slowly consuming the outer solar system. "How long before contact?" he asked. A technician replied, 18 hours, sir. Maybe less. They're accelerating." Kareem tapped the edge of the console. "Alert all ships. No one fires without orders. Let them make the first move." He turned to the viewing deck. In the distance, he could see the faint blue curve of Neptune fading under shadows. His stomach twisted. The war had begun, and Earth hadn't even fired a shot. On Mars, Varel and the other Osari survivors gathered inside the main dome. They watched the same live feed as humanity did, the darkness spreading through the system like ink and water. "These are the same readings from Orit Prime before it burned," whispered one Osari scientist. Lianaco entered with her tools, still strapped to her waist. "We're reinforcing the dome shields," she said. But none of the aliens looked at her. They just stared up at the screen, frozen. Burrell spoke softly. "Do you understand what you face? The harvesters do not invade. They consume. They strip worlds and systems until nothing remains. They will not bargain. They will not stop." Liana clenched her jaw. Then they picked the wrong planet. The harvester vanguard reached the human line near Saturn first. Dozens of black, spine shapes emerged from subspace, each the size of a mountain, their surfaces alive with crawling lightning-like veins. They had no engines, no metal thrusters or panels, just motion, as if pulled forward by hunger itself. The UNSC Aurora, a destroyer-class ship, made the first visual contact. Captain Sato recorded her log moments before tragedy struck. They don't answer hails. They don't emit any familiar signal. They just stare, like the void itself is watching us. The next moment, all communication from the Aurora ceased. The ship's hull appeared to melt from the inside out, folding like paper in a storm. It never even fired once. When the other human vessels opened fire, the stars themselves seemed to burst. Railgun slugs, plasma pulses, and missile volleys filled the void with streaks of color. Explosions glittered like violent fireworks. But the harvesters were not flesh. Not truly. They bled black mist, fragments dissolving and reforming. For every harvester destroyed, two more seemed to drift forward, unhurried, unstoppable. Commander Kareem stood at the center of the chaos, voice strong despite the fear clawing his insides. "All ships, defensive posture. Engage point defenses and maintain range. Do not let them cross Mars orbit." The void screamed with static as another human vessel broke apart, its reactor detonating in a burst of white light. "You ever see anything like that?" whispered his first officer. Kareem shook his head. "No, but they haven't seen us fight yet." On Earth, billions watched the battle feed stream through official networks. Anchor voices trembled, tried to explain images no human mind was ready for. Children clutched their parents as fire streaked across space, silent yet terrifying. Politicians promised faith and courage. Some prayed. Others prepared for the end. But inside secret command bunkers, another kind of silence filled the air. Humanity was calculating, modeling, adapting. Behind every fleet commander stood armies of engineers and AIs rewriting battle algorithms in real time. The builders were awake. By the 6th hour of battle, human ships began forming new formations. Instead of attacking individually, they fought like swarms. Decoys, coordinated fire, smart drones targeting weak points. For the first time, a harvester vessel exploded completely, leaving behind a cloud of molten shards. A cheer erupted on every frequency. Humanity had drawn blood. Varel watched the feed from Mars. He saw human ships, small, fragile things, move like coordinated lightning. They learn while fighting, he murmured. They're adapting faster than the harvester predicted. Liana nodded, eyes locked on the screen. That's what humans do best. We figure things out when it's almost too late. Outside her dome, the engineers had begun converting construction mechs into mobile artillery platforms. Even the refugees started helping, welding and hauling components. Fear had turned into something else, unity. Back at the front, the harvester fleet began altering tactics too. The creatures no longer advanced directly. They spread out, swallowing asteroids and drawing energy from them. Soon, those same asteroids glowed red, transformed into living bombs. Kareem saw the pattern forming and shouted, "They're feeding the debris field. Pull the line back." He wasn't fast enough. A wave of detonations rolled through the fleet. Several human ships vanished instantly in blazing arcs. The shock waves rippled all the way to Jupiter's orbit. Then, from the smoking void, a massive figure emerged. The lead harvester, towering like a moving mountain of glass and liquid metal, opened its central maw. Energy built inside it, forming a sun-bright sphere. "That's not a weapon," whispered a sensor officer. "It's a star killer." The light grew until it blinded every sensor. Kareem gave the only order possible. "Engage full spread. All units scatter." The detonation tore space open itself, a wash of white energy expanding outward. Ships barely escaped. One of Earth's moons near Saturn cracked apart. The void boiled, and then silence. When systems recovered minutes later, half the front line was gone, but humanity was still there. Kareem's voice echoed through every surviving channel. "We hold the line. They came for prey and found people who don't bow. Load the second barrage." The battered fleet turned again to face the darkness. Humanity wasn't finished, only beginning. The battle's echoes drifted in hollow silence. Half the fleet was gone, the rest wounded, floating among wreckage near Jupiter. Commander Kareem stood on the bridge of the horizon, smoke curling behind him. "We're not finished," he said. "We hold." Earth used that silence well. On Luna and Mars, engineers reignited old forges. Miners became mechanics. Factories became weapons yards. Captain Leonico oversaw crews turning cargo haulers into gunships. Even the Osari joined in, teaching humans how to shape energy and strengthen shields. "The commanders fight," Liana said, tightening a weld. "But we build the fists they swing." Out beyond Mars, drones and damaged cruisers repositioned. Humans didn't retreat. They learned. Tactics shifted. Systems linked. Fleets moved like one living creature. When the Harvester Vanguard approached again, humanity was ready. Bombers launched first. Small, swift, fearless. They dove through enemy fire, striking the black holes with plasma torpedoes and kinetic spears. Human ships opened fire behind them, saturating space in blinding bursts. The harvesters bled dark mist. For the first time, they faltered. From Mars, Liana's massive rail cannon roared. Its shot cut through the void like lightning, spearing straight through a harvester giant. The universe shook. Cheers erupted across every frequency. Humanity had drawn blood from the unbeatable. The builders kept firing. The commanders held formation. Bombers weaved between collapsing debris, turning death into strategy. Humanity fought not with size, but with stubborn, furious intellect. Then Earth activated Project Leviathan. 3 colossal kinetic missiles hurled from Earth, Luna, and Titan. They struck like God's hammers. Light swallowed the stars. Several harvester vessels shattered. The rest broke ranks and drifted away. Silence returned. On Mars, Liana and Varel watched the feeds fade to static. The Osari leader whispered, "You build like saviors, but you fight like storms." Liana smiled without pride. That's what it takes to survive. Across the system, survivors whisper the same words again and again. They asked us for shelter. We answered with fire. For a few precious hours, the solar system was quiet. From Earth to Mars, humanity celebrated. Broadcast towers flashed headlines. Harvesters repelled. Fireworks bloomed above Earth's atmosphere, though no one could see them from space. In hospitals and command centers, soldiers and engineers hugged, cried, and whispered words like victory and home. But small win or not, Commander Yusuf Karim knew better. In space, silence rarely meant safety. He stood at the panoramic window of the horizon, looking out into the wreckage field. Giant fragment of harvester. Remains floated past, slowly dissolving into black dust. Scientists on Luna said it was organic matter breaking down, proof the harvesters were alive, or at least had been once. Karim's first officer, Johanna Kerr, joined him, pale but calm. "You think they're gone?" she asked. Karim didn't answer immediately. "Predators don't vanish after losing prey," he said. "They adapt." Down on Mars, Captain Lianakol was still working. Even after victory, the construction domes ran night and day. Humans and Osari labored together, patching damaged ships, building new defenses, expanding the great rail cannon that had pierced a harvester. Everyone was busy, too busy to think about what might come next. Liana barely slept. She walked between scaffolds with a cup of cold coffee, running diagnostics. One technician smiled weakly. "You know, ma'am, we actually did it." They retreated. She nodded, eyes tired but proud. "Then let's make sure they regret coming back." Far beyond Neptune, the retreating harvesters slowed. Their dark bodies floated among asteroids, reorganizing. They had learned fear, not enough to stop, but enough to change. What fled was not defeat. It was transformation. The damaged fragments that humans had considered corpses began merging, absorbing each other. The black dust thickened into new shapes. Thinner, faster, alive with blue light. The harvesters were evolving. And for the first time, the scanners at Pluto Base picked it up. "Command! This is Pluto Station. New signatures reforming at the edge of our grid. They're moving, gods, they're moving fast." Then static. 2 days later, the storms came back. Every colony reported system failures, communication blackouts, false readings, strange distortions in gravity. One by one, observation satellites went dark. Something invisible was interfering. When the first harvester reappeared, it didn't look like the old beasts. It was sleek, needle-sharp, faster than any human ship. It cut through space like a blade through silk. The first casualty was a reconnaissance drone over Jupiter. The object didn't dodge. It simply ceased to exist. Commander Karim ordered full alert. All stations reform the line. Prepare defensive grid alpha. But before the human forces could react, hundreds of new harvester signatures blinked into existence around Mars' orbit, inside the defense perimeter. "Impossible!" shouted a radar officer. "They jumped right through our sensors." The second battle for Mars began without warning. Swarming harvester drones slammed into satellites and cannons, cutting communication lines. Mars' defense grid flickered. Thin lances of plasma carved streaks across the red sky as shields struggled to hold. For the first time, the war reached human soil. Liana Cole raced through corridors, barking into comms. "Get the civilians underground. Reactor 12 to full. If it's not welded down, use it as armor." Outside the domes, the sky burned bright with streaks of light. Human bombers intercepting the swarm. To ground crews, it looked like stars falling upward. Among the chaos, the Osari refused to hide. Though their bodies were frail, they ran weapons relays, carried ammo, repaired generators. Varel himself helped direct shield coordinates. "Your defenses," he said breathlessly. "They need focus here. These things hunt your heat signatures. Liana responded instantly. Then we turned the lights off. All domes powered down non-essentials. The surface went dark. Mars became shadow, forcing the attackers to hunt blind. In those precious minutes, Liana's crews adjusted their cannon and fired blind toward the swarm. The first shot shattered half of them. "Nice job, Captain," came Kareem's voice from orbit. "The planet's holding." "Just buy us 10 more minutes," she answered, "and I'll make it permanent." The Horizon and its sister ships arrived above Mars as the real harvesters jumped in. 12 massive forms stretching across the void, glowing blue from within. They moved slower this time, more cautious, almost curious. Kareem clenched his fists. "They're testing us again," his science officer whispered, "or teaching us a lesson. Then let's learn faster." He ordered all ships into an inverted defensive wall, protecting the planet behind them. The harvesters opened fire. White beams cut through several destroyers instantly, but humanity didn't break formation. They responded with railgun crossfire, covering the gaps before they even widened. For every ship lost, another one took its place. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't perfect. But it was human. Fierce, determined, stubborn. Down on Earth, people watched the skylight feeds in silence. The whole planet moved as one machine of prayer and pride. Children sent voice messages to fleets. Engineers worked overtime. Old scientists re-entered labs they hadn't seen in years. Humanity no longer wondered if they would survive, only how they would make it count. Asterisk. The builders finished new Leviathan rounds. The commanders in orbit prepared another counterstrike. Even the Osari, now bound by loyalty, sent encrypted coordinates about Harvester's weak points. Kareem listened to those transmissions in awe. "They trusted us when they had nothing," he said. "Now they fight beside us when they have everything to lose." "Why?" Kerr asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "Because that's what we taught them." At the 28th hour of battle, the human armada launched everything they had: drones, kinetic lances, nuclear hammers. From Mars' surface, the rail cannon fired again and again until its core nearly melted. And slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The sleek new harvesters fell apart under concentrated fire. Their glowing bodies dimmed, their connection broken. The survivors retreated toward the sun, vanishing in silent folds of light. No one cheered just yet. The war wasn't over. But humanity had proven impossible again, not because they were strongest, but because they refused to give up. Kareem drifted before the view screen, staring at the fading glow. "Status: fleet's battered but alive, sir. Damage reports everywhere. But Mars still stands." He closed his eyes, the exhaustion finally catching him. "Good. Let's rebuild again. Same as always." Back on Mars, Liana stepped outside her dome. The red dust storm had cleared, revealing calm sky. She could see faint trails of wreckage burning out as they entered the thin atmosphere. Varel stood beside her, his gaze lost in the stars. "You told me mercy was your strength," he said quietly. "Now I believe it." Liana looked at him and smiled. "You haven't seen our resolve yet." Somewhere beyond the edge of sunlight, the remnants of the Harvester fleet drifted away. Planning, regenerating, waiting. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Because the next time they came, it wouldn't just be a fight for survival. It would be the final judgment of Earth's might. Silence returned to the system after the last battle. Not peace, silence. The wreckage fields near Mars were endless. Shattered ships, glimmering armor plates, broken satellites drifted together in slow spirals. Trails of vapor curled from twisted metal, freezing into delicate ice sculptures that glowed under the sun. Commander Yusef Kareem's fleet floated among the ruins like ghosts. The Horizon had survived, patched together by a dozen emergency welds. Inside its bridge, the lights were dimmed to conserve power. Crews whispered instead of shouting. Nobody wanted to disturb the quiet. Any sign of movement? Kareem asked. "None, sir." "The Harvester's signal, gone entirely," replied the navigator. Kareem sighed, his shoulders slumping for the first time in weeks. The fight had cost everything he had, his friends, half his fleet, sleepless nights that stretched into months. The enemy was gone for now, Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Down on Mars, Captain Liana Cole stood beside a half-buried hangar. The post-battle dust was thick, a pale haze softening the red horizon. The rail cannon lay silent, its barrel cracked from overheating. It had fired more times than anyone expected it could survive. She watched builders, some human, some Osari, move across the sand, salvaging wrecks to rebuild shelters. Even the children helped, carrying small tools between the larger crews. The war was over only because people refused to stop fighting. Varel, the Osari leader, joined her. His skin now shimmered with faint blue light, a sign of recovery. "Your world still stands," he said softly. Liana smiled, though the exhaustion made it faint, mostly held together by tape and hope. "And heart," he added. "Do not forget heart." Far beyond Earth, scientists were already studying the remains of the harvesters. Most pieces dissolved into dust when touched. A few fragments stayed solid, biotechnology that recognized no pattern of known physics. Inside one shattered husk, researchers found something terrifying. Symbols burned into the inner surface. A pattern, a message. Kareem stood in the observation bay, staring at the projection. The pattern wasn't random. It looked like a map. 20 stars linked by thin lines. He turned to his science officer. "That's not a weapon plan, is it?" "No, sir," she said quietly. "It's a path. Recorded worlds. Every one of them dead." Her voice trembled when she added, "We were the 21st. The truth sank in. Humanity hadn't simply fought off an invader. They had broken a cycle older than memory. Back on Earth, global power grids came online again. The night sky was filled with streaking satellites and rescue shuttles. Cities that had prepared for destruction now flooded the skies with light. Giant banners flapped across towers. "Our world endures." But even in triumph, the cost was everywhere. The Atlantic fleet had lost 70% of its ships. Mars colonies were half ruins. Lunar factories worked without rest to make prosthetics for wounded veterans. Yet humanity moved on. That was the miracle of it. World leaders met in orbit, not to argue, but to plan rebuilding. The Osari were invited to join permanently. They declined, choosing instead to settle on Titan's frozen plains. "This place," Varel said, "feels safe. Where humans once reached for the stars, maybe we can learn to breathe again." Before leaving, the Osari left a monument on Luna, a towering spire engraved with the phrase, "Mercy is not weakness. It is courage made visible." Kareem attended its dedication. He looked older, his hair grayed in weeks of battle stress, but his presence was still strong. Reporters asked him, "Commander, how did humanity survive what wiped out 20 worlds?" He considered his answer. The cameras zoomed close. Around him, people waited. "We remembered who we are," he said simply. "Not conquerors, not saviors. Just people too stubborn to stop helping each other." His words traveled across every screen on Earth, then every Osari settlement, then across deep space. Months passed. Humanity rebuilt not just defenses, but something greater, connection. The war had unified nations that once distrusted each other. Instead of walls, they built bridges. Mars shipyards open to all. The lunar fort produced ships for both humans and Osari, and the first joint fleet was christened the Guardian Line. Each vessel bore a simple insignia, a human hand and an Osari mark, together inside a circle. Liana Cole was given command of the first new construction project, the Sol Dawn, a hybrid dreadnought designed not only for combat, but for exploration. When she inspected its polished hull, she felt the same spark she had the day she first welded steel as a young engineer. Only now, it wasn't for survival. It was for hope. As her ship lifted off on the Martian surface, she whispered, "Let's show the stars the light we fought for." And somewhere in the darkness, beyond sensor range, something stirred. Fragment of harvester code, scattered through the void, clung to life. They whispered between drifting wrecks, rebuilding patterns, learning from defeat. But they had also changed. When the fragments finally reformed into a single consciousness, it remembered the sounds of human defiance, voices that broke silence, fire that refused to die. The harvesters did not feel fear, not like mortals did. But if they had, that is what this feeling might have been. On Earth, a century memorial was built around a single phrase, the last transmission recorded before the first battleship struck back. The same words now repeated endlessly across the monument's base. When they asked us for shelter, we answered with all that we are. Children touched the inscriptions, learning stories of commanders, builders, and bombers, of the people who fought when running was easier. Osari tutors stood beside human teachers, telling how compassion saved two races at once. And at night, visitors looked to the sky, where the planets glimmered in quiet harmony. In her final transmission years later, Admiral Liana Cole summarized it best. Her voice, recorded aboard the Sol Dawn, drifted across deep space. War never leaves us, but neither does courage. We are what the universe never expected, gentle hands that can build or burn, and the wisdom to know when each is needed. Her words faded into the black sea of stars. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a faint signal answered. Somewhere far away, another voice repeating humanity's ancient promise. Earth stands, always,